Iranian state media
Speaking of
says,
which, by the way, here, Israel is accused of deadly strike on Iranian Consulate in Syria and Damascus. We're going to take a look at that as well.
Suspected Israeli strike has destroyed an Iranian embassy building in the Syrian capital Damascus, with the senior commander in the powerful Iranian Revolutionary Guard among those killed. Israel hasn't commented on the incident.
Did you seriously say apartheid? Yes, I did. Are you new here? Yes, Israel is an apartheid. That's in South Africa, right? No. The one in South Africa ended. Israel still has one. Like 100%. And that's just not my singular assessment. You have to be voluntarily closing your eyes and shutting your ears to the reality, considering that the guy who successfully defeated the apartheid in South Africa considered Israel to be one. And not only that, but also, B'Tselem, an Israeli human rights organization, also calls correctly Israel an apartheid regime. Human Rights Watch calls Israel an apartheid regime as of April 2021. Amnesty International calls Israel an apartheid regime as of April 2021. Israel is, without a doubt, definitionally an apartheid state. Saying Israel is not an apartheid is akin to saying, well, actually, this person that you're calling a Nazi is not a National Socialist party member in 1938. It's a Dutch word. Its meaning is rooted there. It doesn't matter where the word's roots come from. What matters is what it is. Okay? I don't know what kind of like semantic purgatory you're engaging in here. Okay? I can't tell if you're trolling or not, or if you're genuinely confused. Okay? But in simplest terms, it's a system of a two-tiered system of rules and laws and governance. Palestinians living under occupation in occupied West Bank live under a military regime. They go to military courts. They have different license plates. Their freedom of movement is restricted. Palestinians living in Gaza are, once again, restricted by the Israeli state. All of this is well documented.
These are the latest pictures we have of the scene. Iranian state television is reporting the scene.
They're definitely occupied, but not apartheid. Not an apartheid / not a genocide. It absolutely is a genocidal campaign, and it absolutely is an apartheid. I don't understand why people are going this far. I don't understand how people can try to say that that is not the case. Okay? I don't really know what the reason for why so many people are saying this. I actually don't get it. I have seen it. Is there, like, I wasn't live for a couple days as frequently as I am. Is that where a lot of people got radicalized in the opposite direction or something? Is that what's going on? I have yet to hear anyone bring up a valid retort. They just say, no, it's not, and they move on.
Senior commander is Reza Zahedi, who led the Palestinian division of the Revolutionary Guard Quds Force. The UK-based war monitor, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, says at least 8 people have died, but as yet there's no official confirmation of the figures. Iran's ambassador and his family are reportedly unharmed. Well, let's get the latest from our correspondent in Jerusalem. That's Hugo Bachega. Hugo, what more are you hearing about this incident?
Yeah, Anita, so this is a very significant escalation. So again, as you said, Iranian and Syrian state media saying that an Israeli airstrike targeted the Iranian consulate in the Syrian capital, Damascus. And now reports suggest that the senior commander of the powerful Iranian Revolutionary Guards, Mohammad Reza Zahedi, was killed. So very significant, a high-profile member of Iran's Revolutionary Guards reportedly killed. So
it's not apartheid because Palestinians are not black. Still very sad what's happening there. I can't tell if you're trolling or not. That's not how that works. Like, I've never heard that one though.
We're hearing now these accusations. We haven't had any kind of reaction from Israeli authorities. We know that over the last few years, Israel has carried out attacks targeting positions and also members of Iran's Revolutionary Guards. But it's very rare for the Israeli authorities to acknowledge involvement in those assassinations. So again, very significant development. We've seen that these targeted assassinations have been happening frequently since the beginning of the war between Israel and Hamas. Hamas obviously is a group that is supported by Iran. It is part of Iran's so-called axis of resistance, and we are having a reaction from Iran already. The Iranian authorities are saying that they're going to give a decisive response. So again, a very significant development. It seems to be a very significant escalation as well with this attack.
Hugo, thank you very much for that. Hugo Bachega there. Let's talk now to Faraz Maqsad, who is a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, about this story. And Faraz, Hugo describing this as an escalation. Do you see this particular strike as an escalation of what's been happening?
Well, there's no doubt about that, Anita. I think some might want to sort of write this off as part of sort of the ongoing operations that Israel has been conducting against both Iran and some of the Iranian proxies operating out of Syria, namely Hezbollah. There has been very senior Iranian commanders killed in the past, including one major strike in December. However, this is the most senior Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander to be killed to date. And I think very importantly, what differentiates this is that essentially the Iranian Consulate in Damascus, which is under international law, Iranian territory, has been flattened. So some major escalation here on behalf of Israel. Of course, the Iranians have a preference to taking the war to Israel via proxies, indirectly using Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and others. The Israelis here retaliating in a more direct fashion, willing to risk that escalation.
Yes, and of course, we're waiting for absolute confirmation that...
Yeah, willing to risk that escalation. I mean, they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I personally think that Israel doesn't think that Iran will retaliate. Whether they are right or wrong in their opinion, only time will tell. However, I mean, bombing Beirut, which happened months ago at this point, and bombing a Iranian consulate in Syria. Iran just confirmed all 7 killed were IRGC officers, including the head of the IRGC Quds Force in Syria and Lebanon and his deputy. IRGC confirms Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, Brigadier General Mohammad Haji Rahimi, 5 other officers, Hussein Amanullahi, Sayed Mehdi Jalalati, Mohsen Sadakat, Ali Agha Babei, Sayyid Ali Salehi Ruzbahani were killed in the airstrike in Damascus, the Israeli strike in Damascus. The Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi was known as the head of the IRGC Quds Force in Syria and Lebanon. Brigadier General Mohammed Hadi Haji Rahimi was his deputy and replacement. Others killed also reportedly include IRGC QF Chief of Staff for Lebanon and Syria. Yeah. It doesn't matter if they're high-profile targets or not. You just can't like blow up a fucking embassy. It's not something that you are allowed to do unless you're Israel, in which case you are allowed to do whatever the fuck you want. Let's be real.
Mohammed Reza Zahedi is amongst the dead, but that is certainly the report that we are getting. If we look at these images from the scene of the explosion, I'm going to ask our director to pull up those images for us. As far as we know, what we're seeing here is part of the consulate, but the buildings on either side appear relatively undamaged, so it does seem to have been a very precise strike.
Yes, Israeli precision in going after these individuals, whether they be in Syria or even in Lebanon, has been quite remarkable. What has also been remarkable and noteworthy is the fact that the Israelis have quite powerful operational intelligence. They know where these commanders are. They went after several senior Hamas and Hezbollah commanders in Lebanon, targeting them within meetings, target them in their own private quarters. And so that raises quite a bit of questions and concerns in terms of operational security for Iran and for these groups in terms of Israel's ability to get to them.
OK, Faraz, thank you very much for your thoughts on this developing story. Faraz Maqsad from the Middle East Institute. And let's get more now from our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, who is in northern Israel. Jeremy, hello to you. And I'd like you, for our viewers, to put what has happened in Damascus into the wider context of what's going on in the region, especially since the war between Hamas and Israel.
Breaking: drone activity over southern Syria reports Iranian suicide UAVs targeted the U.S. base in Al Tanf. Drone alert also reported in the Golan. Israeli airstrikes reported in Yarmouk Basin in Daraa moments ago. It's probably linked to the drone infiltration alert over Golan in Syria. I'm amazed at the world-leading intelligence that managed to find out that the Iranian officer was located in the Iranian consulate. Feeling more and more like we're approaching September 1939. Yeah. For the record, I mean, technically an embassy is the soil of a foreign country. So Israel is like, I mean, this is the closest you can get to striking Iran without actually striking Iran. But yeah, them showing the strike in Damascus and saying how precise they are basically admitted that Israel can be precise in Gaza if they wanted to, but choose not to. I mean, we already knew that. Of course. That's why I always say they are being discriminately indiscriminate.
Well, essentially, there's been an increasingly serious war going on over the Israel-Lebanon border between Israeli forces and Hezbollah, which is the political militia movement, dominant one in Lebanon, which is very close to Iran, also very close to the Syrian regime. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that so much has been happening in Gaza in the war since October the 7th, I think there'd have been a lot more international attention on what's been happening here. And of course, there are connections. That's why it's going on. So what we've been hearing here this evening, there's been quite a lot of air activity going up towards Lebanon. The border isn't too far from here. And I think what's been going on, as you've been hearing, this is an escalation by Israel. I think they're testing the resolve of both Iran and its clients, its allies, Hezbollah, particularly in Iran, to see how they will respond. Because while they have been engaged, Hezbollah particularly, in a tit-for-tat series of increasingly fierce exchanges with Israel, they've always kept it within what in this part of the world is sometimes referred to as the rules of the game. Hezbollah going after military targets, but Israel seems to be pushing it to move to the next level quite repeatedly. And this is a big upward step. So now the big question is, given that the Iranians particularly are keen to keep to restore the deterrence they feel they've been building up against their enemies. In other words, their enemies.
I think the theory is that the embassy being the soil of territory that was abandoned in international law, it's still pretty bad. Here is CNN anchor Jim Scuito, who's their NatSec analyst, saying, on the Damascus strike, IDF spokesperson tells me no comment except, according to our intelligence, this is no consulate and this is no embassy. I repeat, this is no consulate and this is no embassy. This is a military building disguised as a civilian building in Damascus. Iranian ambassador to Damascus says Tehran's response will be harsh on the Israeli strike. It's hilarious because these actions would literally consider an act of war, and the U.S. and politicians and citizens would be freaking the fuck out if the country bombing embassy consulate wasn't Israel. Yes. More on this from the Al Jazeera correspondent.
Ali Hashim now. Ali, you have covered the region extensively. Iran's state media has confirmed that Mohammad Reza Shahadi of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has been killed. What do we know about him?
Well, Mohammad Zahidi is one of the most senior IRGC commanders. He used to be, before being dispatched to the region, to Lebanon and Syria, he was also the head of Iran's area, the IRGC's aerial forces, the ground forces. He took several responsibilities over the past years. However, he's been in and out in Lebanon since the 80s and 90s, and was said to be the head of the IRGC in Lebanon. Now, meaning to be the head of IRGC in Lebanon means that he is in very close coordination with Lebanese group Hezbollah. And
why does Iran support Palestine? Don't they hate Sunni Muslims? Iran supports Palestine because they correctly identify Israel as an extension of American imperialism, and they hate American imperialism, Western imperialism in general. So they don't give a shit. There's also no like real distinction. They don't hate, Iran doesn't hate Sunnis. They don't like Saudi Arabia. And the actual, I guess, political battle is fought over that as regional actors. But beyond that, it's not like they see Palestinians as a decent way to try and destabilize Israel. And regardless of their own personal motivations, it doesn't fucking matter because they're on the correct side on this issue. The Iranian government is not on the correct side on many issues, especially as it pertains to their own domestic politics. But on this issue, they are on the right side. And the only reason why they're on the right side is because Israel is on the wrong side. And America is on the wrong side on this issue. It's that simple. If you want to dismantle Iranian opposition in the region you have to eliminate any kind of strategic interest that they might have. This does not mean you eliminate Hamas or any kind of Palestinian resistance, because you will always have Palestinian resistance to an apartheid, because people can't be pushed to a corner without any kind of pushback. In order to eliminate the need, in order to eliminate Hamas, I guess, quote unquote, you have to eliminate the need for Hamas. You have to eliminate the need for Palestinian resistance. So a real, stable, long-term plan would be to eradicate the apartheid, would be to dissolve the apartheid state and create long-term stability. Of course, no one wants to do that.
in 2021, after Javad Ghaffari, who was Iran's IRGC commander in Syria, was dismissed, he was appointed as the head in Lebanon and Syria. So he's a very senior commander, and he has a lot of respect inside Iran, especially within the hierarchy of the leadership.
Okay, so really a huge target here. It's, of course, not the first killing of someone from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps since the war on Gaza began. We were hearing from our correspondent in occupied East Jerusalem, Hamda Salhoud. She was talking about the assassination of the Hamas leader, Salah al-Aruri, and he was said to have been going between Hamas, between Hezbollah. If we look at the pattern of who's been killed since October 7th, who is Israel going after?
Well, in fact, there have been several assassinations over the past 6 months, starting with a couple of Iranian IRGC tech guys. They are officers in the IRGC, but they're mainly specialized in technology. And I think as the Israelis accused them, they were responsible for drone attacks. These were the first 2 IRGC officers who were killed in Syria in an Israeli airstrike. Then there was an assassination of a Hamas operative in Syria, and that was surprising because of all what we know on the kind of troubled relations between Hamas and Syria, and that was responsible for launching rockets from the Golan Heights, from Golan towards the occupied Golan. Then the assassination of Razil Musawi, who was the IRGC logistics guy. He was one of the most senior IRGC commanders in Syria, and actually he was killed near Damascus. Then the assassination of Saleh al-Aruri, then the assassination of the IRGC intelligence unit in Syria, and now the killing of Zahidi, General Zahidi. And it's not only Zahidi who was killed, his assistant, his deputy actually, was killed, and the guy who replaced Razil Musawi, the guy was killed in December 2023, who succeeded him was also assassinated today. So Israel is going behind all the networks. And it seems that it's hitting the layers, different layers of communication, coordination, and leadership. And this is aimed mainly at uprooting the Iranian military influence, and at the same time, for example, with the killing of Saleh al-Aruri, the leadership of the resistance groups, whether in Lebanon or in Syria.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to mention also the killing of Hezbollah's field commanders during the past months also.
We're hearing from Iran's foreign minister, and our correspondent Zaina in Beirut touched on this, saying that they hold Israel responsible, that there will be consequences. How do you expect Iran to respond? They have refrained from responding directly so far, but this attack is something else, is it not? Well,
over the past few months, there have been several assassinations, as we said, but it was clear that the deterrence, the Iranian deterrence, is distorted, and it isn't capable of retaliating, or they're taking a kind of a decision to keep a space or a distance and not retaliating. The fact is that today's attack is different. Now, we can't give an answer because this is within the area of analysis. However, it's most probably that with the hitting of a consulate, which is kind of an Iranian soil, the Iranians are in front of a big decision to take, or else the deterrence will get weakened and weakened day after day. And then with the killings of such high-ranking commanders, maybe we'll see much more bigger assassinations over the coming weeks.
Ali, thank you very much for your analysis. That is our correspondent, Ali Hashim.
AKP edged propaganda newspaper published with the title F words have won. Oh my God. F word tree has won. Shame on us is the title of this. That's crazy. That's a wild fucking, this is in Turkey. Like the anti-gay F slur. Brandon calls this month Arab Month. The White House just sent out his note proclaiming Arab American History Month. This message condemns the brutal Hamas terrorist attack and reverse of the passive voice to mourn that the trauma, death, and destruction in Israel and Gaza have claimed and continue to claim far too many innocent lives. Dude, it's so funny. You can't... It's like liberals are allergic, dude. They cannot say that, like, you shouldn't kill Palestinians without being like, but we hate Hamas. I promise we hate Hamas. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what the fuck is going on here? You can make a statement about how devastating it is that, you know, there's a genocide happening with your weapons, by the way, that seemingly America is not interested in, like, changing course on at all. But it's also ridiculous. It's like, it's just utterly ridiculous to fucking... Is it April Fool's? I don't know, maybe. Former Donald Trump aide Hope Hicks is expected to testify at Trump's New York hush money trial. Nice. Love seeing my girl Hope on there. Oh, here, by the way, Biden administration has set the green light. Here's the real news. Biden administration set the green light sale of American-made F-15 fighter jets to Israel in a deal expected to be worth over $18 billion, sources say. There it is.
Feeling that they can't hit Iran, its people, or their targets. Well, the Israelis have said, oh, yes, we can. We're going to do this. So now the question is, does Iran respond? How does it respond? It may not be the way that you'd expect. It may not be, you know, I wouldn't expect them to start sending missiles into Israel. Far from it. It might be a cyber attack. I mean, this is all speculation on my part. But the point is that this really increasingly dangerous war between Iran and its allies and proxies and the Israelis has tonight taken quite a big step up.
And what impact, Jeremy, do you think that is going to have on the ground with regards to the situation specifically in Gaza?
Well, I think that Gaza now has its own dynamic there that's going on. I don't think that, you know, that you can actually... There have been responses elsewhere in the region because of what's been happening in Gaza. I don't think it necessarily works the other way around. You know, the point is, when all this started 6 months ago now, October the 7th, there were fears that the war would spread. Well, the war has spread, and that has been clear at the very least since the end of last year. And this is another example of the way that a part of the world that is fragile and incendiary that has now taken another step up. You know, I've been doing some reporting around here today, up near the border with Lebanon in the town of Kiryat Shimona, the Israeli town, talking to the mayor, and the mayor says Israel should invade Lebanon because it should invade the south, should take on Hezbollah and destroy it, because in this area, thousands of Israelis have not been home since October. They've all been evacuated. The towns are empty. So, you know, this is something which is a continuing crisis, which has every chance of getting worse.